There's a confusion between the present self and this younger, less capable version of the self. Grandiosity is contempt for another person. Shame is contempt for oneself. Hi, this is Jim Breon. Welcome to this YouTube channel where we discuss all things mental health. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and also a licensed professional clinical counselor in Orange County, California. What I'm going to be talking about today is a question that clients have asked me sometimes, and I think it's a pretty common thing for some people. Why do I feel like I'm a child inside? Why do I feel like I never really grew up? It's an interesting question, and I've had it come up with different clients, and there are some patterns that might lead somebody to feel this sense of kind of emotional immaturity, and maybe not in all aspects of their life. A person could feel very competent and effective in lots of areas of their lives. They might be very good at what they do in their work. They might be professionally very successful. They might even have families and, businesses and have standing in the community. Yet, in certain aspects of their life, they can feel like they just revert to being a child when they get triggered by something emotionally. And often what happens with a person who experiences this is that there's often a very, very harsh inner critic that identifies with an image, a self-image of a much younger, more unsure, scared, insecure child version of themselves. And that concept of this inner child and the adaptive child as well, there's a confusion between the present self and this younger, less capable version of the self. And that younger version of yourself needed to rely on others to get their needs met. They might have learned that having needs didn't make sense, so I couldn't really ask for them. You might have been fearful of responsibility. And there's lots of reasons why these things can happen in a person's life. One dynamic that might lead to this is, did you grow up in some form of emotional neglect? In other words, were you an invisible child in your family? Was there a golden child and maybe you were the invisible child? Did you grow up with a parent who was a narcissist or an emotionally immature parent, or maybe somebody who had mental illness of their own, or maybe an addiction? Did you grow up in chronic invalidation and chronic criticism? Sometimes when we haven't fully differentiated from our family of origin, we can still feel triggered by a critical parent or a narcissistic parent or emotionally immature parent that's still in our lives. If you work in a family business with somebody like this, it's almost impossible not to be triggered emotionally in some way on a regular basis. Another question that I would explore with somebody is, have you experienced some false empowerment yourself? Did you grow up with a narcissistic parent that tried to convince you that you're better than everybody else, or smarter, or more grandiose, more superior, but you just struggled to actually believe that? And maybe if you have been falsely empowered, you might act out in a grandiose way, but then get triggered by shame, and then from that shame version of yourself, flip into grandiosity. Grandiosity and shame can be thought of as two versions of contempt. Grandiosity is contempt for another person. Shame is contempt for oneself. And if you find that you experience this, if you feel like you're sort of a child inside who's never grown up, you want to mature that inner child, that possibly wounded part of yourself, and invalidate the negative self-talk and the negative self-image, and grow a stronger, more healthier, wise adult version of yourself. How do we do that? Well, one way to do that is through doing inner child work, contacting that scared, vulnerable part inside of you that represents the reservoir of all of your deepest needs and desires, maybe unmet needs and desires. Doing parts work, talking to different parts of the self to see what you can learn and how you can support different parts of yourself, learning to soothe yourself, learning to soothe the upset child part of yourself. And many people who've grown up with parents who couldn't regulate their own emotions couldn't help teach the child to regulate theirs. You want to look at the idea of continued differentiation from family figures, and what kind of boundaries you want to establish, whether they're emotional and psychological or sometimes interpersonal. And if you have been someone who's been falsely empowered, then you have to learn how to come down from grandiosity as well as lifting yourself up out of shame. And it really involves kind of fully integrating that self-doubting, insecure child. Because when that unintegrated, doubting, insecure child part of us is still there, it limits our expression to act like a fully formed and functioning adult. Can lead people to temper tantrums, and we can get stuck in black and white thinking or magical thinking. So learning to pause and not react in those instantaneous childlike ways can help a person learn how to become more responsible. Learning healthy communication, including nonviolent communication like I statements, can be helpful in communicating your needs in more grown-up ways. And a lot of it really just has come down to learning distress tolerance and emotion regulation. All of this is best done with love and compassion for the wounded parts of ourselves. Because if we attack those parts and we want to sort of kill our inner critic, that's just more interpersonal violence. Those parts of you initially were there to protect you from getting hurt again, or shamed again, or ridiculed again, or criticized again. And maybe in some ways those parts helped when you were a child, but now that you're an adult, they're actually holding you back. So if this is something that resonates with you or people in your lives, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, and leave some comments, start a conversation. Also, let me know what you might want to hear about. And until the next time, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and take care of the different parts of yourself. Bye-bye.